Hey everybody, and welcome to the 74th week of the Free Assange Online Vigil. My name is Andrew Smith, and I am joined by my co-host Steve Poikinen and Misty Winston this week. We do have special guest Vanessa Beeley with us, and we will be joined in a little bit by Mohamed Elmaazi. But before we get into that, I do want to run through some numbers with everybody. Today is day 3,642 of the illegal and arbitrary detention of Julian Assange. It is day 602 since the WikiLeaks founder was trafficked from the Ecuadorian embassy following a $4.2 billion international monetary loan fund to the nation of Ecuador. We have exactly 30 days until Vanessa Breitzer is due to make her decision on January 4th, 2021. It is 1,271 days of federal incarceration for whistleblower Reality Winner. And the good news that we have, it is day 258 of freedom for Chelsea Manning, and she is streaming on Twitch more often than normal, but her usual schedule is Thursday through Sunday from 7 p.m. until around 11 p.m. Eastern Time. And in good news, but not the best news ever, we have Jeremy Hammond, 18 days in a halfway house, not quite free, but almost there. So special shout out to him for everything he did to bring us the truth. But with that, I would like to say, how are you doing today, Steve?
I'm all right. I feel like I've been ran ragged since like 6 o'clock this morning, and I'm slowly coming back into that. I had like a lengthy message from Whitney Webb this morning, and we'll talk about that on Slow News Day tomorrow. I had like an 8 a.m. meeting, and now I'm here. And I'm about 3 sips into my second cup of coffee, so I could be saying dumb stuff very, very shortly. Yeah, that's about that. I should mention though that we're exactly a month away from when District Judge Vanessa Breitzer, the concierge to the U.S. State Department, reads her decision in Julian's rendition hearing in action for Assange's crowdfunding to go back to Washington, D.C. to hold events on the 3rd and 4th of January. We remain one of the only U.S.-based presences in the street for Julian, which is discouraging, but I think we're getting somewhere with that. We're starting to build up a coalition, and things are looking up. Having said that, we'll make sure that the GoFundMe link gets posted into chat a couple of times throughout the day. We are slightly more than halfway to our goal. Thank you so much to everyone who has made that possible. We love you and we appreciate you, and we are absolutely going to raise hell on your behalf. But if you're anywhere near DC, come hang out with us. Let's fill out, let's have as big a presence as we possibly can for this, because this is the death of investigative journalism. And as soon as they were able to illegally remove Julian from the Ecuadorian embassy, other journalists have been on the chopping block. One of them has joined us today for the show, and that's Vanessa Beeley, who has been the subject of a ridiculous, false, manufactured narrative by the British Broadcasting Company. And Nessa, now that that's been out and has been able to play through, and you've been able to return fire, as it were, to fucking Chloe. You want to talk about that a bit, because this is just fascinating stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually, how long is the whole program? I think it's around 5 hours. Mm-hmm. And at least 2 episodes are pretty much dedicated to attempting to smear me as I don't know. It's difficult to actually listen to it. I don't know if you guys know of a British comedy called Yes, Prime Minister, but it's very reminiscent of that. It's like Chloe's little voice over coming in. So, Vanessa Beeley, appeared on a right-wing platform. It's this kind of, throwback to the World Service kind of announcement. And actually, it's hard not to kind of get the giggles through most of it because it's so bad. I mean, it's really bad. And I'm a bit surprised at how bad it is. I mean, I was sort of thinking, oh, they must have some really like hidden experts they're going to wheel out and come out with some really hardline information. And I'm still listening and I'm still trying to find that hardline evidence that does actually somehow discredit us. But no, we're just back to the kind of default, a sadist, paid by Russia, paid by Syria, paid by someone.
You're so right though, because I subjected myself to one of those episodes, and it sounds like a send up.
Yeah,
I mean, it sounds
seriously.
It's like they're presenting a bit instead of this like groundbreaking investigative journalism. It's farcical, and yet idiots are going to believe it because BBC4 said it.
Yeah, and I mean, there are some more serious aspects to it. I mean, a few things. First of all, of course, I'd just like to point out that I never met Sean Penn.
Wait, Sean Penn? What?
This is the level of fantasy that the BBC is putting out, and Sean Penn, who sounds incredibly stoned in the interview, but who was somehow prompted by Chloe that it was me he met instead of actually Eva Bartlett that he met in 2016 while I was in Aleppo. So kind of a big difference there. So that's number one. Number two, of course, for me, the most serious aspect of it, I think it was in the episode with Sean Penn, where they bring on this Syrian so-called activist, Abd al-Qadir Habak. Now, Habak was brought in to effectively try and discredit the Syrian civilian testimony that the White Helmets were running organized organ trafficking operations, cross-border organ trafficking operations. So he comes in this really bad English talking about the fact that, it might all be down to autopsies. Maybe they took lightly injured kids to Turkey and then they did an autopsy on them, even though they were only lightly injured and they hadn't actually died and the relatives hadn't asked for an autopsy. But, the BBC kind of rolls out this excuse and they half-heartedly say, but, this is just a theory. But they don't, of course, actually really investigate the potential for the White Helmet involvement in something as heinous as organ trafficking and child abduction. Now, the interesting thing about Habak is that actually, first of all, conflict of interest. He was trained by Basma Syria and an organization called Analysis, Research and Knowledge, ARC Group. ARC Group were the manufacturers through James Le Mesurier of the White Helmets. Both organizations are UK Foreign Office funded outreach agents for their intelligence agencies. Big conflict of interest here, right? They have a researcher and a witness that is trained by the Foreign Office and by the same organization that created the White Helmets that the BBC program is investigating, right? That's number one. But number two, and probably for me the most damning, is in his role as a so-called freelance journalist, Habak produced a report for Channel 4 where he's basically filming and kind of glorifying a group called Nour al-Zinki. Now, Nour al-Zinki are most famous in July 2016 for the public beheading and torture of a 12-year-old child, Abdullah Isa. And Habak basically obviously produced this report for Channel 4. Channel 4 put it out with the Krishnan Gurumurthy's voiceover. And the public went crazy because Habak is actually filming the three guys that beheaded the kids, right? And so they're also talking about suicide bombing, bakeries, and so on. So basically, it's just a litany of war crimes by war criminals, filmed by somebody that is clearly supporting the war criminals. So effectively, the BBC, very probably, according to their latest response to me, paid for a researcher and a witness for the program that was fraternizing with child beheaders to discredit journalists that are exposing the child beheaders. So, I mean, you really can't get any deeper into a moral vacuum than this BBC program. I mean, that's just the beginning of it. I mean, they infer that one of the OPCW whistleblowers was paid 100 grand by WikiLeaks without actually asking WikiLeaks if they paid him the 100 grand. So, I mean, you know, and then they accuse me of lack of rigorous journalism.
Right.
If they paid him the 100. Hi, Mohamed.
On the subject of rigorous
Vanessa?
journalism, we're now joined by the intrepid journalist Mohamed Elmaazi. Mo, it is fantastic to see you again. I know you can only stick around for a short time, and I want to say I'm very glad to have you back on the show. And we're not going to try and keep you from, you know, getting your dad a birthday present or a Christmas present or whatever it is that you need to do. But I appreciate you being here. And you put out a piece in Sputnik just a couple days ago that is certainly worth discussing, even though it's not 100% related to the Free Assange Vigil. And I was wondering if you could kind of give us an overview of that, and we can sort of walk it around the panel.
Sure. Which one? Because I published daily with that.
Oh God! If it was earlier this week, I'll pull it up. I meant to have it.
Is it about asylum? Is it about refugees, or is it something else?
Let me double. Yeah, it's the asylum.
Asylum seekers. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
because
so
it's reminiscent of a lot of things that have happened here in the U.S. too.
Sure. So there's I did 2 pieces on it. It's actually based on somebody else's report. So Edwards Dashti did a report for RT where she went to Napier Barracks, which is a former military barracks that has been repurposed, I think, as of September, to house, or as I described it, warehouse asylum seekers, 400 plus people. And she went there, and it's important for people to understand the official position of the Home Office is these people aren't in detention, right? They don't consider them to be criminals. So this is from a statement that was read out during her report. These aren't criminals. These are asylum seekers, and we're doing everything we can to provide them the support they require. So this is accommodation. It's not an immigration detention center. And yet, despite that, she found that when she went there to the fence, the chain link fence, right? Because like I said, it's a former military barracks with barbed wire on the top. People who came to speak to her that were in the courtyard were then shooed away by security. They're even on the record saying, look, I want to speak to you, but I can't because they're saying, no, I can't. People said that she was told, including by people off camera, that, and I think one of them, refugees on camera, that people are kept in rooms of 30 per people. So on the one hand, as she points out in her report, if you were to do that during COVID lockdown, you could get fined £10,000 sterling, but here you have all these people in cramped spaces. They said that bugs, the beds and bed sheets are infested with bugs, that there's a high level of self-harm, a high level of depression. There is a Sudanese refugee who's a pretty cool guy, actually. She interviews him. He comes by in a van to try to donate clothes and food. In fact, I think he might have been granted status, so he goes around now. He's got a charity where he goes to different asylum seekers or locations and donates food and clothing. And they stopped allowing him in. And so he sets up in a park nearby where I think they're allowed to leave 2 hours a day. And so the report basically focuses on their treatment. There's video footage from mobile phone footage that she got access to that's also overlain with the documentary that shows people getting into arguments with the security, protests. There's reports of hunger strikes, etc. And you have some people saying, at least with prison, you know when you're going to get out, right? We don't know what's going on. So that's also a thing that, you know, when I used to work years ago at the Refugee Council, or when we used to work on certain cases, because I used to work in the legal field, is lack of certainty, right? Lack of knowing when your situation is going to come to an end is a big deal. You know, as you can imagine, for any human being. In fact, in the criminal justice system more generally, because technically this is not the criminal justice system, this is the immigration system. There are things called indeterminate sentences, which they give here, which have long been controversial, where certain people will get a sentence that's indeterminate, right? So it could be 10, you don't know when you'll be released. It could be 10 years, could be 20 years, could be 30 years, could be 40 years. So if you're given a life sentence for murder, because here murder is an automatic life sentence, you have murder with the possibility of parole, technically release on license after 10 years or 20 years, 30 years, depending on the circumstance. But at least you have an understanding that there's a possibility of being released on license after a certain number of years. So that lack of certainty, the mistreatment, also importantly is the report that visitors who go to Napier Barracks have to sign a non-disclosure form, which is apparently backed up by the Official Secrets Act. So you're not allowed to discuss what you see there. Now, I could understand if it's about people's personal data, that you're not allowed to discuss people's names because they're asylum seekers. It's about protecting them, but that's not. It's about whatever you see inside.
So it's
that
like
seems pretty off. Right?
It's on par with special administrative measures like Julian would be facing were he brought to the U.S., were he renditioned to the U.S., where it's not even you can't discuss anything about the conditions that you have observed inside this facility, nor can you even mention, in the case of prisoners under special administrative measures, that they're under special administrative measures.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't say it's as extreme as that, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I suppose in terms of inability to speak out, I haven't seen the non-disclosure form. It's just that's what's reported in the report.
I would love to see that form.
Right. So I would love to see that form as well. And in fact, so I interviewed Shadia for Sputnik. So it's a question and answer form, because that tends to be my pieces for Sputnik, or an interview form, unless it's for the Assange case, in which case I write up my own pieces. And then for the Canary, I did another piece where I covered it, and so it's in more of a written article. Where was I going with this? About oh right, yeah. So I was like, why am I telling you about? All right. So I contacted the Home Office when I was preparing for the article, right? So the written piece for the Canary, which is also up now, and I contact the press office and I say, hey, I want to give you a right of reply because I'm doing a report on this report about Napier Barracks. Okay, send me an email, right? So I was like, oh, I think I know what you're talking about. Can you say, when was this report? 28th of November. Okay. I send them an email with a link to the report, bullet points of the allegations that they can choose to address or not address, including the Official Secrets Act. What do you say about this non-disclosure agreement? What do you say about high levels of self-harm? What do you say about people saying they feel treated, 30 people to a room, lack of social distancing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then I call them back up, get confirmation that they've received the email. And I say, we'll want this piece to go up probably 1 p.m. tomorrow. So let's say your deadline is 12. And I set that in the email as well. And he says, okay, that should be fine. I called him up the next day, 10:30 in the morning, just following up. Oh, so-and-so is in a meeting, but absolutely, I'm aware of this. And yeah, he's on it. So yeah, don't worry, we should make your deadline by 12. And then I call up again later up as we're getting to 12, somebody else. Well, I don't know about this, but perhaps you can forward me the thing. Here's my email. Right. So that was 2 days ago or 3 days ago now. So the piece has obviously gone up. And I just have a line at the very end, is that the Home Office was contacted repeatedly. And despite promising to come back with a response, they didn't. And the thing is, I think that was more than enough time. And if they come back Monday with a response, I'll either incorporate it in or I'll draft a second piece, because I want responses from the government so people can then say, this is what these people are saying, and this is then what the government is saying. But that's a conscious choice on their part not to respond.
Well, one of the things that
sorry,
makes
Vanessa looked like she wanted to ask something.
Well, one of the things that like fucking kills me when I hear about this situation is that same Home Office a few weeks ago got the right to break any law they want in the name of the financial security of the United Kingdom. So all of those people in that facility are lesser than slaves, because the UK government can choose to do vaccination research to benefit Operation Warp Speed with all of these humans they now have corralled into pens in former military bases. So like that is a pending genocide.
I don't know about anything. I'll be well surprised if the government started engaged in any kind of like forcible vaccine testing. But
well, self-harm and suicide would be
apart from rolling out the army in Liverpool to carry out PCR testing.
Yeah, but that's different. That's not forcible, right? But that's part of multiple things. A, the under 40 years of the undermining of the National Health Service, so that leaves you to become dependent on branches of the state or even the corporate state like G4S and things like that, which because you've outsourced and privatized and underfunded and undermined. And B, I think that's also part of normalizing the idea that the military is an inherently good thing, even though the military is not a very efficient structure for things like healthcare, because that's not actually what they're designed for.
You don't say.
It's actually financially inefficient, but there is this. I don't know if you heard it. There's an announcement last week or the week before for the largest increase in military spending in 30 years, 16 point something billion pounds. Britain is already one of the largest NATO spenders, and this is still while we're going to be told another round of austerity.
16 billion.
Yeah,
16 point something billion.
Pussies.
I know, right? That's like chump change.
Yeah, but bear in mind.
That's a trip to
We
McDonald's.
spend 16 billion on half a bomb.
Yeah.
On Tuesday. Tuesday.
Bear in mind, Britain is no longer the empire the US is. Right? We have 1/10. We have 1/10 of the wealth. Right? It's like $1.5 trillion economy rather than a $10+ trillion like the States. But also, Britain does its part of the US imperial umbrella, right? Mm-hmm. So in exchange for a slice of the cake, a slice of the pie, they do their part, but they can't. It's the sun no longer sets on the sun now does set on the British Empire. It's been subsumed by the US one. They're carrying the torch. So they can't afford the kinds of, the perversely expensive stuff that the US can do. Britain they can't afford. I'm sure, don't get me wrong, I'm sure they'd like to spend even more. But here, I think they're a bit cleverer. They do things slower here, right? So it's like the boiling frog analogy, right? Where if they were to, even with austerity, I remember being almost impressed that when they were imposing harsh austerity on everybody, they did still cut from the Ministry of Defense. And I wondered, I wonder how long they're going to do this. And now we know how long. So they cut from the Ministry of Defense years ago now, a previous government under the Tory Liberal say, look, we're all in it together. And now they're having the largest increase that they've had in 30+ years because they can wait. There's a patient system.
While we're on the subject of both military spending and military adventurism, Vanessa, you told me either yesterday or the day before that the Syrian people are bracing for war within weeks, and we do not get to hear the voices of the Syrian people at all. In the
way for 10 years.
We rely.
It's not going to change now. Yeah,
we rely so heavily on your reporting, on Eva's reporting, on just a small handful of people who are dedicated to getting the truth out and the voice of the Syrian people out. So I'm hoping that you can speak to this a little bit.
Yeah, I just quickly wanted to ask Mo, do you know who's running this kind of this detention center, whatever you want to call it, this holding house? Is it Serco? Because Serco, of course, run many of these kind of holding houses, and there are a mass of complaints against them. But the really interesting thing, and that comes back to Andrew's point, is that Bill Gates invested in Serco in around June, July last year.
Doesn't Peter Thiel have a stake in Serco too?
Doesn't
Peter Thiel have a stake in Serco too?
I'm not sure.
I'm
not sure.
Pretty.
I mean, it's massive.
Sure.
I mean, Serco is, it's very similar to Darktrace in the sense that it's one of those bizarre companies that just gets contracts without even tendering for it, right? And I keep an eye on them, and of course they're responsible for the COVID track and trace also. I just saw something come through my feed on them that they've just been allowed to, despite all the complaints against them, particularly as you're talking about kind of the halfway houses for asylum seekers, etc. I mean, they're renowned for the appalling conditions that people are forced to live in. And yet they are consistently given these contracts by the Home Office, by the government, for, as I said, the track and trace for COVID, etc. So I'd be really interested in knowing who's actually running this facility.
Apparently, it's Clear Springs Ready Homes.
I think that's I've spoken to them before. That's interesting. I mean, that's something worth looking at as to who's running these halfway houses, because
Absolutely.
I think then you're going to find perhaps a little more corruption than is visible on the surface. That's all.
Yeah, they're a subsidiary of the Clear Springs Group, which I'll find out as So that's an excellent question. So we'll find out who.
Yeah, just be interested to know, because the Serco involvement is definitely something that raised alarm bells for me when I saw that Bill Gates was suddenly really interested in them. I must admit, the first thing that came in my head was, you do have, a captive audience, and while the vaccination is not ostensibly mandatory, we know that people are not going to be able to travel without it. They're not going to potentially be able to take out bank loans. They're not going to be able to go to school, etc. So effectively, it's mandatory.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to continue living and you don't want to live in a cave for the rest of your life and have absolutely nothing to eat, nothing,
CNN reported on vaccination cards at the beginning of the week.
Yeah,
that you're going to have a,
holy
you're
shit.
gonna have the card that not only says that you've been vaccinated, but it reminds you when your next round of vaccines are. The vaccine, by the way, that even Bill Gates
that's been around for decades, though. I have that from the 80s. That shows.
But you don't have it for COVID-19 though. Well, and that's what they're going to make travel conditional.
I see what you mean. I meant like I have a medical book that shows what.
Yeah, I do too.
Sure. Those are vaccinations that were developed over 15 years.
Right. Not
like the warp speed COVID-19 developed in 6 months. Well, we have no idea what's in it. Or if it's been tested.
Is that you don't have to carry around your little childhood medical book to.
Sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you meant simply the existence of a medical book.
No.
Okay.
This is gonna be the show me your papers.
Papers. Show me your tattoo.
Right. Right?
Yeah.
Hey, when we're all in the same dissident camp together, can we get different matching tattoos just to throw off the ones that they give us?
Well, that'll show that you're a radical, that you have to be targeted in the camp.
Yeah, exactly. Then you'll be sent off to the data colonies.
Right. To the spice mines with you.
We are in Handmaid's Tale at the moment.
We kind of are, yeah. I mean,
it's scary. It's really scary.
Different things right now. Like if you just take all of the different fictions and the two out of each of them, you can build this crazy world that we live in, because this is literally like the prologue of V for Vendetta, as it is the same time the conclusion of Orwell's book. Like it's
exactly. But yeah, no, sorry, just coming back to Syria. Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty here, and a lot of that, of course, is to do with U.S. elections and you know, the losing of Trump to some degree, because Trump, for all his insanity and economic savagery towards Syria, from a military war perspective, things have been relatively stable. But with the incoming Biden war party, which is the only way I can describe it. I mean, you have the biggest array of, oh God, Democrat, Republican, you know, bipartisan war hawks in his various teams, whether it's the COVID-19 task force or whether it's his upcoming administration. So that's number one. Number two, there is a definite feeling here from people with a fair amount of information of what's happening on the ground, that there is a very strong potential before Biden is actually inaugurated, that things will be kicked off here again. Certainly we've seen, and of course it won't even be reported in American or UK media, there have been a number of Israeli attacks in the last 2 or 3 weeks. I think I said to you, I mean, where I'm living, I'm not far from one of the main air bases, air defense bases in Damascus. And so we always kind of know when there's an incoming attack, because we usually hear it like literally a kilometer away from here. But certainly Israel, there's been an uptick in Israeli attacks and threats. What we're also seeing, of course, not only the BBC Mayday series, but I'm seeing a lot of the think tanks starting to kind of rejuvenate the you know, Syria criminalization narrative. I'm seeing the case against President Assad in Germany. I'm seeing, as I said, a number of the familiar think tanks starting to roll out again with the Assad criminal narratives. We're seeing, while some are thinking that American troops are withdrawing, they're not actually withdrawing, because there is some movement of American troops in the northeast towards the border with Iraq. But in reality, what they're doing, according to sources here, is actually what you're saying is the movement of convoys of oil with American military protection to Iraq, and then of course from Iraq it's being sold. Now that's bringing in the region of, conservatively speaking, 30 million per month. Of course, it's being laundered through an oil company associated with the Syria Democratic Forces, which are effectively the Kurdish separatists under the control of the US. And it's providing them with revenue, but most importantly, of course, what it's doing is preventing the Syrians having the oil. And that has a number of knock-on effects, combined with the economic terrorism that is being used as part of the hybrid war strategy, the multi-spectrum war against Syria. And for example, in the last 2 days, normally my electricity is on 3 hours on, 3 hours off. It dropped off to 4 hours off, 2 hours on, because apparently the Kurds had targeted or prevented convoys leaving that had been sold to the Syrian government. The Syrian government is effectively having to buy its oil from US proxies in the northeast in order to keep electricity going in people's homes here. In the next suburb to mine, they only have about 2 hours a day. And you know, we're coming into now the coldest part of the winter. People don't have fuel. we're back to 5-10 kilometer queues for benzene, for fuel for cars. People don't have gas. People can't buy diesel to warm the house when there's no electricity. So they're totally dependent on the electricity for everything, pretty much. And I think the plans are to probably try and reduce oil supply to the Syrian state that's under the control of the government and the army as much as possible. But what is maybe more worrying is that I'm hearing more and more these days that there is a real fear that the American military base in Al Tanaf has been basically rearming, re-equipping, retraining, recruiting, whichever armed group you want to call it, but actually ISIS have been carrying out isolated attacks to the east of Palmyra and Homs. Homs has been on relatively high alert for suicide attacks over the last 2-3 months, even before then, to be honest. So there's a threat to the east, to the south, of course. We know that Israel is fostering armed groups in the south in particular, and that hasn't really stopped even after the various reconciliation agreements in the south. Dada is, which was the kind of seat of the orchestrated uprising, is gathering again. There are almost weekly assassinations of what are perceived as government loyalists or military convoys, etc. We know that there is a British intelligence presence or military intelligence presence also in the south, training for what we would call, what Rand paper would call swarming technique, which are isolated attacks on military targets, etc., and then the disappearance of these small groups, these small cells of terrorists back into the desert or into wherever they're gathering.
So just real quick, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but we got to get Mo out of here. He's got he's got a day ahead of him yet. Mo, I want to thank you so very much for being able to pop in today. It's always a delight to see you and to speak with you. Quickly, but before you split, will you please let people know where they can find your work and where they can find you?
I'm on Twitter at Elmaazi, which is just the first initial and then my last name. And then you can see the other basically outlets I publish with, and I tweet out the articles. And then there's a link in the profile page where you can click, and muckraker.com just lists the articles as I publish them, so you can just get figured out from there. Thanks again. Sorry, I would stay, but it's there are other things I've got to get to otherwise. But it's
really good to meet you.
Likewise.
We'll definitely do this again.
Yes.
Thanks, Mo.
Cheers. Good luck with the rest of the show.
Thanks, Mo.
Thanks.
Bye.
Mohamed Elmaazi from London. I love that man very much. He's just a dear, sweet human being.
I really wish we could have asked him about the pardon versus dropping the charges thing, though, because him coming back at Chris Hayes was good. So that's okay. Next time. We'll talk to him next time.
Well, and we can kind of flesh that out here just real quick, too. A pardon means you can't bring back charges. Right. Dropping charges means you can reintroduce charges. So the reason that we're calling for a preemptive pardon is so that Julian is not subjected to the same reincarceration and resubmission of charges that Chelsea Manning has been subjected to since her initial release from prison in 2017, 2018.
And she continues to live with that hanging over her head. I mean, that's no way to live.
All they did was the only reason she's walking around right now and able to stream on Twitch is because they dismissed a 10-year-long secret grand jury. Not because she had been absolved of anything or because the judge in her case realized that she wasn't going to break no matter how much time or how many, significant the monetary punishment was, but because the grand jury itself was dismissed. And it was dismissed because they were able to get testimony from 2 FBI rats, one of whom is a convicted pedophile, and the U.S. State Department and Department of Justice decided that these 2 witnesses were at least cooperating, if not credible. So why not run with it? Because the American public at large and the British public at large has been so successfully propagandized that they will on the surface read the statement or read the headline without looking into who Sabu or Siggy really are, which is horrendous. Because again, we've got in Sabu an FBI paid FBI informant who set up Lulzsec. The reason that Jeremy Hammond is in a halfway house right now is because this rat Sabu entrapped him into committing computer intrusion on behalf of the FBI in order to set up WikiLeaks. And yet the only person to pay a price for that, or the only people to pay a price for that are the victims of entrapment and the victims of the targeting.
Yeah, and I don't think that a pardon is inherently bad. There are some people that argue that a pardon means you are saying he is not guilty of a crime, or that what he did was a crime in the first place, which I agree and I don't. But at the end of the day,
listen, I don't give a fuck as long as he's free. Like, he's
right.
That's the point. Let's save his life, and then we'll worry about the bullshit.
Right. And
like,
then
stop arguing over the dumb ass mechanisms of it. I don't care. He just needs to be out of prison.
Yep.
Whatever.
The Australian government opens up like a 12-year-old traffic ticket to get him sent back home to be free or some weird awkward shit. Like,
yeah, I don't care.
It just has to change.
Listen, if we have to Hulk smash Belmarsh, let's do that. Let's go get him out. I don't care what needs to happen. I don't care if it's a pardon or if it's dropping the charges or if I don't care. The mechanism shouldn't matter. Let's save his life, and then we can worry about all of that other, detail-oriented stuff later. You know what I'm saying? It seems like a really ridiculous argument to be having.
I agree.
Sorry, it just gets me heated because it's all over Twitter. People are fighting about, well, Donald Trump doesn't have any right to pardon him because I don't care.
So I understand some of that argument in that Julian Assange is an Australian citizen. Mm-hmm. And so a U.S. presidential pardon can seem weird because he's not a U.S. citizen. But at the same time, the Australian government has done less than fuck all for Julian. In fact, they've gone out of their way to hide from comment about it, let alone making any sort of declarative statement that, hey, you have our sovereign citizen in your custody. We'd like him back. It's not as if that's happening. So in terms of I don't know, saving national face for Australia, I can see how that makes sense. But again, that's quibbling that can be done after the man is no longer in a fucking infested wing in Belmarsh prison.
Well, and I can talk all about Australia saving face. You had your shot, fam. You could have been speaking out this whole time for your dude, and you haven't been. So I don't care about you saving face. I don't care how it looks for you. I really do not care. However we need to go about getting him out, I'm down. I don't care. Doesn't matter.
I think also, I think with everything, it's even with the COVID-19 thing, people are getting so wrapped up in the legalities of it all. And I'm thinking, well, okay, take a legal case, but that's a long-term action. Right now, our world is effectively being destroyed in front of our eyes, right? And whether it's Assange, whether it's the working class, whether it's Syria, Venezuela, Libya, whatever, we need to be taking direct action. The legal shit can come afterwards, and the arguments about the legal shit can kind of come afterwards. Now is the time for direct action, right? I'm living in a country that has resisted military pressure, political pressure, diplomatic pressure, media pressure, economic pressure for 10 years, They don't give a shit about coronavirus, right? Because they're worrying about what food they can put on the table, what if they can keep warm, if they can find clean water, if their sewage is going to be taken away. You know, the basics of, and we're going to be in that place fairly soon.
Oh my God!
Right?
Did you hear Klaus Schwab say you will eat sewage if we tell you it saves the planet? Did you hear that shit?
I didn't hear that.
What happened to Vanessa? That was creepy.
I think Vanessa.
Yeah, I'll find the clip and I'll play it on Slow News Day tomorrow. But Klaus Schwab legit.
Didn't that dude just join Twitter too? Fucking creepy bastard.
Yeah, but you can't comment on any of his.
Yeah, because and I love that. Like his initial tweet was like, "Hey, I'd love to be able to talk with you guys, except I'm gonna hide all the replies. Like you can't respond to my shit." Such a fuckface. But yeah, like Vanessa's completely right. Like they're in terms of Assange, they're destroying the First Amendment in broad daylight, like right out in the open, not even hiding it, not pretending they're not doing it. And everybody's just standing around watching. And it's a very bizarre thing. And, I know that there's a lot going on right now. There's COVID and all of this other stuff. But if you don't have free speech, you're not going to be able to effectively fight back against any of these other things. That's why we all take this so seriously. That's why we try to get other people to take it so seriously. People get pissed at me because I tweet about Assange too much. Well, I mean, I wouldn't have to if other people would, pitch in. If there were more people talking about it, I wouldn't feel like I had to do it all the time. So, it's super creepy to watch people like zombie walk into their own demise. You know what I mean? It's really bizarre to watch.
Because even in like Event 201, the first thing they talked about eliminating was the media.
Yeah,
like, completely locking down the internet.
Historically speaking, I mean, that's if you look. I mean, look at any fascistic society. The first thing that they do is attempt to control the narrative completely, because that's how they control the people. And so they have all these people out here, beating their chest, claiming that they're fighting fascism, but they won't speak up for Julian Assange. And sorry, that's not how that works. You don't, like you don't get to pick and choose, punching Nazis versus defending the First Amendment. Like it's just this really weird environment that we're in right now. I'm glad we have Vanessa back though. See, they didn't.
Me too.
We mentioned that fuckface, and all of a sudden Vanessa disappeared.
Right. No, but did you hear Schwab, Vanessa, say like you'll eat weeds and drink sewage if we tell you to?
Yeah, exactly. And the whole data colony thing. I mean, what is his name? Yuval Harari was saying that at Davos, right? He's talking, of course, existentially about some dictator somewhere is going to create these data colonies with AI and blah, blah, blah. But effectively, that's what they're doing. They're creating data colonies which they can control.
That's exactly what a smart city is.
Yeah,
that's exactly what a distance learning AI-driven elementary school is, or junior high, or high school, or whatever. That it's a fucking data colony. Yeah, and yet people are sleeping on this, like it's like we're nuts for reporting on what they have said publicly.
Yeah. Exactly. This is the whole point. We're not making this up. This isn't just something out of our adult brains. This is, there was an article came out, and it was The Hill published an article about the Great Reset, talking about Prince Charles and blah, 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 blah. It's in the mainstream. It's not something, it's not even hidden. It's out there.
The dude's got 50 books that he's written. And one of them even says like the Great Reset and COVID-19. It's
you guys.
I'm the guy.
And MSNBC are talking about dark winter. Like they're just out there saying it like it's
Yeah, they keep saying it. They keep talking about the new 9/11.
It's so bizarre.
And we've had Fauci, Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab. fucking all these people say you are never going back to normal. There is there's no return to the way things were. It's going to be like they almost flat out said, like, we're going into a brave new world, like all but just as on the nose as that. And yet I'm the guy who's fucking like ridiculous for reporting on it. It's my fault that these guys are doing this shit somehow.
I mean, I was talking about before I got rudely dumped that, that we'll soon be facing the kind of conditions that the Syrian people have been dealing with for 10 years, and I think it's really important that people see the parallels between what our governments have been doing to, far-flung countries that nobody's really too bothered about, and what's actually now happening to us. We're under economic sanctions. We're entering enforced food insecurity. Our dogs are going to be eating freaking dog food with locusts in it and cockroaches in it soon. I mean, I'm not making this up. This is out there. Cellular meat is the next thing to cannibalism, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's human cells going into that meat. I mean, we're just entering this hell, and people are just acting like it's all perfectly normal. No, it's fine.
They soiling.
The government has our best interests at heart.
Wait,
it's really creepy to watch. It's like it's worse than the frog in the pot. It's people participate in their own destruction. Like they're actively cheering it on. I mean, we have people actively cheering on what's happening.
It's like we're in the pot and people are dipping their fingers in the pot, tasting it, going, "Nah, could use some more salt."
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
I did.
It's not that hot.
What are you complaining about? At least you're warm.
Come on, water's fine. Yeah, super creepy. And it's just getting worse. Like, it's just getting worse. And it's going to continue to get worse. I can only hope that as things get more ridiculous, that more people will start to observe what's going on and maybe start to fight back a little bit more. But I don't have a lot of hope for that. I mean, just historically speaking, people are very content, it seems, to be controlled. And that's really unfortunate.
Well, they've been gaslighted for decades.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't have any confidence in their own ability to judge a situation at all. They're waiting for the information to be fed to them by people that they perceive to be experts or in charge, in control, etc. That's the majority. And as Steve just said, if you're even pointing out the reality according to those people they put their trust in, which isn't for their benefit, you're a conspiracy theorist. You're a wacko, you're a flat earther, you're a whatever, an anti-vaxxer. Whatever they can come up with, which just dismisses your arguments down to some kind of ridiculous reduction. And, I've had years of this with Syria, so I know exactly how it all works. They just reduce the whole debate down to sound bites, right, that they can throw at you, which just immediately puts people off even talking to you.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had this for years. Oh, here we go.
Oh, there goes your power.
One sec. Let me just put the light on.
Do we get Commander
Welcome to
Exile?
life, Syria.
If people are watching, wondering what just happened, this is Damascus. Fucking.
Yeah, this is life in Syria. Uh-oh, did we just lose her again?
No.
No.
Back.
Yay.
I managed to get myself set up with some decent LED, so it's cool. I can carry on.
Nice.
But yeah, that it's this reduction of any kind of discussion down to these kind of completely ridiculous base arguments, which means nobody ever gets beyond that point. where everybody becomes gladiatorial before they even start. And that's the craziest thing. I mean, it's really hard to have any serious debate on this with people that are kind of a bit scared or sitting on the fence or whatever.
I think that that's a very effective method that they use. They do it with the Assange case. You support Julian Assange, then you must be a Russian because he helped Russia, or you must be a Trump supporter, or there's just a number of attacks that you get if you support Julian Assange, and it's based on absolute like garbage information that doesn't even exist in reality. And they're very good. It's like the propaganda game in this country specifically, and Steve said this a number of times, the United States is the most propagandized country on earth. I don't even think it's close. And they're very, very good at it. They're very good at manipulating your thoughts and making certain subjects completely unacceptable to even approach. You can't even talk about it. It's like, for example, the Seth Rich murder. This is a DNC staffer who was murdered in a nice neighborhood in DC. Nothing was taken from him, and we're not allowed to even talk about it. You can't even mention it, or you're immediately called a conspiracy theorist and Alex Jones and a Fox News viewer, and you're MAGA and all this other stuff. And it's no, you guys, this is an unsolved murder of a DNC employee under suspicious circumstances. Why can't we talk about that? That's bizarre. And that's
exactly.
They're very good. They did the same thing with Pizzagate. Pizzagate it seems crazy, but I don't think anybody could deny that there's a pedophilia problem amongst the elite. I mean, you have plenty of evidence to support that. And so they use this Pizzagate thing to make the subject unapproachable. You can't talk about the pedophilia ring because then you're a Pizzagate conspiracy theorist and you're a nut job.
Oh, seriously? No, I know, because even with the organ trafficking and even with the child abduction in Syria, it's like a no-go area. I mean, I remember when I actually went on RT going underground with Afshan Ratanzi, and we brought up the subject of organ trafficking. It was unbelievable. It was like we just dropped a kind of nuclear grenade on Twitter. Like everyone just went apeshit. Bellingcat, the lot of them, they were freaking out. Right, and the attempt to dampen down the whole discourse over this, and of course that's part of what the BBC Mayday series was about, to try and destroy that narrative, of course. But even among progressive media, that whole subject is, I almost see people take a sharp intake of breath when I bring it up. It's like, oh shit, no, not the organ trafficking,
What?
But historically, it is one of the major harvests of war. In every single war, it's a major income stream for these proxy contras, armed groups, whatever you want to call them, terrorists, etc. And the US and the UK turn a blind eye to it.
There are certain subjects that have been made so taboo to even bring up, that people have put up all these self-imposed mental blocks that when you broach the subject, their pre-programmed reaction is to just shut down and lash out with, you're crazy for even bringing this up. And when you like try to show them, actual physical evidence, then they double down on that position of, oh, no, you're crazy. I don't want to see anything that you have, because to acknowledge that these things take place, that they take place not only in their country or by their country, but with their own fucking tax dollars in a number of cases. Like, that's just too much. That's too much for they're so heavily invested in the lie of the West, the promise of the West, the propaganda that has we've been subjected to since birth about living in the West, that to have any kind of information that conflicts with what has essentially become a belief system is treated the exact same way as it would if you came up to a fundamentalist Christian and said the earth is older than 6,500 years old. You know, and they will recoil and they will double down and they will go back to their concentrations of faith and they will have their ideology reinforced. And then you will be a heretic. You will be, what you're speaking is treason. What you're speaking is heresy, and therefore you are to be shunned, ignored, mocked, and ridiculed.
It's a bit like, I mean, if you look at the kind of sanitization of child trafficking, which is intercountry adoptions. You know, people have this image, but no, you know, we're giving a home to a needy kid. We're giving it a kind of a Western education. We're giving it advantages in life. That kid, 9 times out of 10, has been stolen from its family for your benefit, right? And that kid grows up with a major identity crisis. And a sense of abandonment, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, there are a number of really good organizations against child trafficking. I would direct people to really investigate what's going on with intercountry adoptions. Rolly Post, who wrote about the whole kind of financial setup in Romania and how these organizations were profiting from the trafficking of children under the umbrella of legal adoption. Right. Again, it's a massive trade out of these impoverished, deliberately impoverished and targeted nations. And yet people kind of, and I sort of get it, that they want to believe in the good in humanity. They want to believe that people are doing things for the right reasons. But, you know, if we're back to this direct action thing, we need to start taking responsibility for our own education and for our own understanding of this planet, because if we don't, it's going down the pan. It's like it's totally fucked. If we don't actually as individuals start taking responsibility for looking into everything, and yeah, it's shit, it's hard work. But if you don't do that, you don't have a real understanding of the world you're living in, and you don't know how to confront it and fight it.
Well, and I mean, instant information, ignorance is a choice. You have a device in your hand that has access to like all of the information, all of it. You can get on there and you can research things for yourself. And so to not do that, it's a choice. And I understand that people are busy. They have jobs and kids and families and all of these things going on. But, you know, if you want to participate in society, you need to educate yourself about the way that it operates. And
let's face it, it's becoming more available. You know, I said to someone the other day, I think I was talking to Whitney, and I said, you know, actually, I kind of wish whatever is coming would come because like we're at the point we can see the whites of the enemy's eyes, right? Because they're revealing themselves now. They're no longer in the shadows. The kind of entire predator class is coming out in the open. You know, the World Economic Forum are saying what they want to do, right? These people are making themselves visible. So it's not even as if people have to look very far to understand what's going on. It's in the mainstream. It's no longer clandestine. It's no longer below ground. It's above ground. So there's not the same excuse that they have to go to cranky kind of progressive media outlets to find out something and then they have to disentangle the conspiracy from the fact, blah, blah, blah. No, just read it on mainstream. It's there. But employ your faculties of reason to not just digest this information without actually kind of going through it and double checking it, you know?
Yeah, I think people need to listen to George Carlin more, you know, read everything, and question everything, question everything. I mean, it shouldn't be controversial to say that, you know, your government is corrupt as fuck and they're doing horrible things. And if you want any hope whatsoever to combat that, you're going to have to figure out what they're doing and, you know, look below the surface. It's not, you know, this thing where you can just kind of, you know, zombie walk through life and not pay attention and hope to, combat what they're doing, because they're way ahead of us. They're way ahead of the game. Like, we are so far on the defense, and I don't know that there's a way that we can, come back from it at this point. So, I mean, it would definitely help if people would be more active in educating themselves. Yeah. For sure.
Real quick, I want to do this because sometimes I check the GoFundMe during the show, so we can thank people who donated. And we have Rob Juno donated $20. Thank you, Rob. Chloe donated $5. Thanks, Chloe. We appreciate that. We do. Sean Crawford, Edward Stone, Todd Southern, Rachel Sotos, Joyce, I'm gonna murder your last name. Kat and Zaridi, I'm so sorry. Jason Arts, Rob Juno, Che Guevara donated $5. That's nice. Insane. The nickname I gave Jank Uger, which is Jank Eunuch, which has been modified to Cunt Eunuch. That they donated $10. I can't thank you guys enough. I really do appreciate it. And whoever donated in the name of Chloe, bless you.
That's good shit right there.
Bless you. It was glory, Jeff.
Please send me a screenshot of that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'll do that right flipping now.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Oh boy.
I'm sorry to derail an excellent conversation there, but that just cracked me up, and I had to. This stuff we talk about is so heavy that if we don't take a break for levity every once in a while, the entire show is just going to turn into a screening.
Right, like I can already hear my DMs filling up. Like, quit smoking cigarettes on camera.
I don't know why people get so offended by that. You guys, we're talking about a journalist being tortured to death, and you're mad about smoking on camera. I mean, there are much bigger things to be mad about. Seriously.
Yeah. Well, it's one of my. I have an old lady friend that watches, and she yells at me.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry, old lady friend. Really, you should just quit smoking, though, Andrew.
I don't even get stop smoking ones anymore because I think people have realized that that's not going to fucking happen.
Right.
But what I do get is you should not use your potty mouth.
Yeah.
What?
You say fuck too much.
I get that too.
And look, man, I'll tell you, I'll make you a deal.
I come on here to swear because I don't dare swear on any of the others.
Right.
I'll make you a deal.
We exist.
I will use more civilized language when we live in a more civilized society.
World. Yay, way to go.
Yeah, it doesn't make any fucking sense that's what you're about. We're talking about war and genocide and torture and the destruction of society as we know it, and you guys are mad because I said fuck. Really?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the Walking Dead. You can watch people be gutted, but they can't say the word fuck. It's the dumbest thing ever. It's a word. It's a word, you guys. It's just a word. It's a word. And it's a good word.
You can watch a made-for-TV movie where there's a rape in the opening scene, but you can't say the word fuck or shit. Right. Go right back. Let's invoke St. George again. St. George Carlin, a long time ago, did a bit about the seven words that you can't say on television. and since the airing of that bit, you can now say a couple of those words, but they're the old standbys that you can't ever utter in polite company. And I would like to once again reiterate that as soon as we live in a civilized society where humans aren't being fucking experimented on, where people aren't being tortured for telling the truth, where people aren't being punished out loud for reporting on that truth, where we are not being censored because we have information that runs counter to the official narrative. When we live in that world, I'll stop swearing. But until then, fuck off.
I won't. I'm always going to say it's a great word.
Yeah. And I mean, I did an interview the other day. I saw in one of the comments, why was she laughing? I was like, seriously? Like, do you know how much I need to laugh sometimes?
Yeah. Seriously,
seriously. I mean, what we're just supposed to be manically depressed the whole time? If we can't laugh, I can't survive this shit. If I
laughter is just one of the services that I provide.
Right.
And I would like to think that it's appreciated, you know?
Yeah,
I mean, by
exactly.
God, the people that I talk to every day, like you, Vanessa, I have seen the most horrific angles of life. And if I can make somebody laugh who's seen all that shit, dude, are you kidding me? That's a gift to me. It like I don't know why you would discourage that. I don't, man. It's beyond me.
It's also, I mean, it's something actually. It's a really interesting point because people in the West are so far removed from the dark humor that comes to the surface when you're in a kind of war situation. I remember being in Gaza when Israel was bombing solidly for 2 weeks, and we would have drone parties. Like people would go on the roof of their house and like yell at the drones. Now these are drones that they can target you, right? We'd be on Facebook going, okay, are the drones with you now? Okay, like get out on the roof and tell them to piss off. Tell them to fuck off, right? And that's the thing. You develop a sense of humor to deal with the level of shit that you're dealing with, right? People in Syria have the best sense of humor, right? They're in the shittiest situation, but you'll rarely see them depressed or moaning about it. They'll be cracking jokes. And
I think it's a coping mechanism. It's how people survive when you're in a shitty situation. They say if you don't laugh, you'll cry, and that's that's how I deal with everything. It's maybe not a healthy coping mechanism, but I deal with everything with snark and sarcasm. I mean, that's just how I operate. So laughing is fine, you guys. Like, stop. There are bigger things to be mad about. Really,
exactly.
there really are. Really, there are.
So I have two questions. The first one, I think we answer a whole lot, so it's not too long. And this is coming from World Traveler 198 over on the A4A chat. They said, you're preaching to the choir. So how do we get people who are unconvinced or ignorant? Be the person in your town to tell them. Knock on doors, go down the street with a megaphone, pass out flyers, literally tell them what is happening in the world around them and give them at least the opportunity to reject.
You don't even have to go. I mean, it's great if you do go hand out flyers, but just talk to people, like your friends, your family, your coworkers, the people who, you see in the grocery store every week and that you stop and chat to, or your favorite server at your favorite restaurant or whatever. Like, all it takes is person-to-person conversations. That's it. If you have conversations with people, you can find common ground and talk to them and have intelligent conversations. And I told this on Twitter the other day because somebody was said something about how Trump supporters are irredeemable, and I'm like, that's ridiculous. I live in small town Ohio. I'm surrounded by Trump supporters. They're not bad people. They're propagandized and they're looking for someone to blame, and they're mad and they've been fucked over too. I mean, everybody's getting fucked over. They've just fallen victim to different propaganda than liberals have. And my mother-in-law is a longtime conservative, like lifelong Fox News viewer, and I have managed to change her mind on both Medicare for all or healthcare and Julian Assange. And I've done that just by talking to her. It's that simple. It really is that simple. Just educate yourself on the subject and then go talk to people.
And we have a question over in the MCSC chat that's kind of to that same sort of tone, and I think it'll be an interesting answer from everybody. And this person said, given the choices, what is wrong with supporting Trump over the ancient regime? I think he would be open to the kind of news, anti-pedo, organ trafficking, etc., that you guys are telling. So I would first like to kick that over to Vanessa as someone who is like on the front lines of spreading this kind of information, because I have my own personal opinion that I feel like most of us sort of share.
I don't think the president makes the blindest bit of difference. And I don't think it makes the blindest bit of difference if it's Democrat or Republican. Because the majority of these projects are engineered and orchestrated by the deep state and by, you know, the guys in charge behind the governments. And that's what I'm saying right now, is the transnational predator class is coming out in the open now. And it's clear that the governments are not in control. I mean, you know, look at Boris Johnson. No one in the UK government knows what the hell is going on with COVID-19 measures and lockdown and blah, 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 right? Why? Because they're not actually creating these measures. They're being told what to do. And I think that's one thing that COVID-19 has kind of thrown out in the open, that our governments are not the ones in control and the president is not the one in control. I think the slight difference between Trump and maybe Biden, I mean, you know, one thing, Biden's kind of vegetableized, right? And really it's his administration that's going to be in control of the country. And, you know, the administration is scary. It's really scary. And he's unearthing and bringing back to life people like Clinton and Obama. And I mean, it's actually like kind of something out of Michael Jackson's Thriller. You know, we're seeing them all being brought back to life. Even Kerry.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
it's
Who looks like
right?
he stepped off of the set of Thriller now.
Yeah.
Like he
The Night
looks
of the
like
Living Dead.
half warmed over Herman Munster.
Oh, God. I mean, it's really scary, you know.
Joe Biden, in like one fell swoop, said, okay, who are the people that screwed up the worst on foreign policy?
Will destroy the world. Who will destroy the world? That's
Okay,
basically
get them all in my cabinet at once. In a show of unity, I'm going to bring together the neocons and the neoliberals, and we're going to have this globalist hug. And the end result of that is going to be a technocratic panopticon and new world order. Does that sound great? Doesn't it sound great?
Steve, there are people with lady bits in his cabinet. And
that's true. And some of those lady bits are brown.
I know. And that's really what matters. It's diverse, diversity, unity, civility, eagles and fireworks.
Empathy. Don't forget empathy.
Huh?
I said, don't forget empathy.
That's right. That's true. No, nothing says societal evolution by having someone with brown nipples send a drone to go bomb innocent children.
I mean, you guys, they put Mira Tannen in charge of the budget. I mean, she hasn't been like officially voted on yet, but this is a lady who said, "Hey, Libya has oil and we need money." So
I think I have that tweet. I think I have that.
The email
saved.
Yeah, I mean, and not only that, I think, the people that Biden is putting in his cabinet, it's a direct slap in the face to the progressive movement. The progressive movement. I can't stand progressive. But, you know, putting Mira Tannen in a position where she will directly go head to head with Bernie Sanders could not be a bigger fuck you to that group of people. And Bernie Sanders will likely vote for her. That's probably going to happen.
I can't find that, but I am going to bring up this picture here real quick, just so everyone can see who we're talking about.
We lost Steve.
Steve, you froze.
Lost Steve.
We might have
about in case.
You're locked.
Hold on.
I have proof.
Steve,
you froze, Steve. We didn't hear
hard.
anything you just said.
Okay.
Back all the way up.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
742.
Okay. Why are you not? Oh, now my computer's being an asshole because I'm trying to show people Mira Tannen's crazy eyes.
Yeah, she's not stupid.
Damn you, Kevin!
Go watch her interview.
Well, until my shit starts working.
I do have a question for Vanessa from our Twitch chat. They said, how much surveillance do you feel like you're under from Western governments, especially like Canada and the US? And do you feel like that surveillance has made daily life more difficult?
No, I don't really feel that I'm particularly under surveillance. I mean, I have to be a bit careful. You know, if I go to areas, which I do, that are recently liberated, I have to be a little bit careful because there's some pretty, even around here, there are still the next suburb to here, Kutsaya, was actually a terrorist suburb, right? And I think it was liberated in around 2016, but a number of the extremists are now in charge of the checkpoints, which is, part of the Syrian government amnesty and reconciliation. But there are sleeping cells even around here. Now, of course, that's not a direct threat from the US government or from the UK government. But at the end of the day, these guys are their proxies. So, but I tend not to think like that, because if I start thinking like that, I kind of go crazy. So I don't really worry about it. I just live my life and do my job and not think about it, because what's the point?
I absolutely agree.
I'm gonna try this one more time. I don't know what's up with my machine here, but it is
Kevin.
Irksome.
Yeah. What are you trying to do? Just bring up a crazy eyes picture of Nira? Because that's
just try to fucking open up a picture.
That's literally all the pictures of Nira, all of them.
There we go.
Oh my God, look at her.
Okay.
Look, that's, and I said this on a previous stream, but I'll reiterate. This is the look that you give someone when you want them to know that you dream about wearing their skin so you can always be close to them.
Oh, that's really not a good image.
She's going to make it
potential head of the Congressional Budget Office right there.
Yeah, she's a horrible human being. I mean, you can try to say that I'm sexist or I'm racist or I'm a misogynist because I don't like Neera Tanden, because that's the narrative right now. If you say anything bad about Neera Tanden, then you must be a sexist. She's a piece of shit human being. Like, straight up, that's not up for debate. That's just reality.
And that's Misty's lady bits talking right there.
Yes.
Like, Misty's not even saying that, but all of her lady bits are.
That is straight
so
from my
it's not misogynist.
Yes.
There's actually
Right quote.
There's quite a few WikiLeaks emails involving Neera Tanden that I would like us to compile at some point for a show.
Also, Jake Sullivan, as Whitney pointed out to me, there are something like 6,000 emails featuring Jake Sullivan. So that seriously needs to be gone through at some point. I kind of started and looked at the 6,700. I was like, I don't have the time. But yeah, he figures hugely.
We need an American version of Stefania Maruzzi to go through each and every one of those documents and put it together in a cogent, comprehensive way that we can all study it, because it is overwhelming.
Actually, if you're talking devil eyes, Jake Sullivan. Oh my God. I saw a picture of him the other day. It was just like, Jesus, this guy is I don't know, possessed.
I think being evil gives you the crazy eyes. Because they all. I mean, Hillary Clinton has crazy eyes.
He's got the same eyes as Kamala Harris.
Yes.
Like they're just dead. And
John Kerry is dead eye as well. Yes, is Robert Ford, the former ambassador.
All of them.
If you remember your David Icke, they're not dead eyes, they're lizard eyes.
Lizard eyes,
Oh, well, you know. What about, hey, Vanessa, what about, what's her name? Avril.
Avril Haines?
No, the who Biden just announced his office of Director of National Intelligence.
Yeah, it's Avril Haines.
Avril Haines.
She was Obama's drone warfare woman, right?
And was a participant of Event 201.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, his entire COVID-19 task force. I think Whitney's written something on that, right?
If she has, I haven't been able to keep up.
I mean, it's packed full of eugenicists and transhumanists and the whole lot, basically.
Was a consultant for Palantir, Like
Yeah.
all of the, if you were in the same lab that created Pete Buttigieg and made him into a nearly human CIA Democrat, Avril Haines was created in this lab. This is a woman who stuck up for Gina Haspel, who worked closely with Palantir, who took part in the Event 201 series, and is now ostensibly going to lead the entirety of U.S. intelligence.
Well, that's it. You're going to be droned. Because she was a big part of Obama's drone warfare team. So, you know, this is someone that's really happy to bomb people remotely.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's intersectional imperialism, though. She's a lady.
Yeah.
Well,
More
yeah.
intersectional fascism, please.
Look, let's face it. Samantha Powers had a closed UN session where they watched a video of the white helmet doctors putting a hypodermic needle into a baby's chest and moving it around, hence killing the baby, right? If it wasn't already dead. And she came out, tears, you know, just about rolling down her cheek, that was the most heinous thing she'd ever witnessed. And of course, it was all Mr. Assad's fault. Mm-hmm. So, you know, actually, and I'm really sad to have to say this, but a woman in power is way nastier, generally speaking, than a man in power.
I absolutely agree with that, and I think it's because it's, you know, a boys' club, and so there's like they feel like they have something more to prove. Like we can be just as awful as the dudes can, you know. Like we can compete with these, you know, creepy ass motherfuckers. Like we can totally.
I will out psycho you with my lady ball.
And to be honest, we're more devious in power.
Yeah, well, yeah, I would agree with that. I would say, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, speaking strictly from like an assassin's point of view, in terms of the difference between women and men assassins, poisoners traditionally have been women and are much, much, much smarter and more deceptive in their methods of killing people than like your average fucking bloke with a club or a gun.
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying. So, you know, for me, it's actually kind of scary that there's that many. Oh God, I don't know, women in power in Biden's administration.
It's super offensive to me that people think that I should be excited that Kamala Harris is going to be vice president and that she's a woman. Yeah. I'm not excited about that. That doesn't make me proud to be a woman. That's disgusting. That makes me sad that that's the first woman to kind of break through that level of power. That's gross. Yeah. Like that's not something to be proud of.
Well, I mean, even Hillary Clinton. I mean, this is the woman that guffawed publicly, right, about the sodomy and murder of Gaddafi. I don't want to be associated with a woman like that. I don't even consider her human, let alone female.
I know. And they're like, these women are like lifted up as these, you know, role models that we should all be aspiring to be like, and that we should teach our daughters about. And I have 2 girls. They will not be learning that Hillary Clinton is a good person. No, that's not going to happen.
Exactly.
It's a really bizarre thing that I'm supposed to be somehow excited as a woman that, you know, the lady who refused to prosecute Steve Mnuchin and let pedophilia priests off the hook and jailed poor parents for truancy. And I'm not excited about that. Like, no, thanks. I'll pass.
No.
I'll go.
Yeah, me too.
You know, but because we're ladies and she has lady bits too, we have matching bits. We're supposed to be super pumped about it. No.
Let's pull up a quick picture of Jake Sullivan for a moment.
Oh, please. There was a Politico article that came up recently where he really has dead eyes on it. Oh, no, boy. That's not such a good one.
He looks like an undertaker who also runs a human organ trafficking enterprise.
Yeah. Can you find the Politico article, the cover photo on that? Because that is the real kind of evil eye image. I think it's Politico.
Yeah, he looks like a weird, like Mitt Romney, Pete Buttigieg mashup.
I see what you're talking about.
Have you got it?
Oh my
Right?
goodness.
It's outrageous,
That
right?
wow.
The anticipation.
I didn't think
I know.
I didn't think someone could look more robotic than Zuckerberg, but
Yeah, look.
there we are.
Oof.
No, there he's actually
They're
looking
like
a little bit
bloodshot
Nazi,
and empty and
Yeah.
Nazi. Put an SS uniform on him,
Right.
and perfect.
oh yeah.
Ooh,
Right?
no, you know what he kind of reminds me of? Like a Pete Buttigieg. You guys know the creepy guy from Poltergeist? Like the old dude?
Oh, God. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
He's got that vibe.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I
Seriously, I saw that
Wow.
picture. I was like, shit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we've gone through a lot of shit today, but like, that's probably one of the scariest things.
Yeah.
You might get a position of power in the world larger than
Yeah.
what they had previously.
Yeah.
It's terrifying, the people that are being appointed.
Face, though, that like dead eyes probably comes from that like extreme level of stress that you have to be under to constantly be trying to do the worst possible thing for humanity. Because like that's what they're doing. They're literally like, okay, we're all in. Let's get to the finish line. We just got to make this last 50-meter sprint through this corona shit. Get them all vaccinated. We're good. And you can just see them fucking freaking out as they're trying to push this past the finish line and through everyone's blinders.
Right. That reminds me of like the Tammy Duckworth thing where she said that we have to keep our soldiers safe by keeping them in war. And you could tell, like, Jimmy Dore did a segment on it, and he was like, you can tell, like, the moment her soul leaves her body.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. And I remember, you know, Robert Ford, right? The US ambassador to Syria who trained up the FSA and whatever. Well, I had a number of debates with him, right? And I remember him coming on message to me at one point, trying to kind of pour his soul out. It was all a bit weird, actually. Like sort of, you know, I cried when my friends in Iraq were killed. I said, yeah, well, maybe if you hadn't produced the death squads that killed them, you know, like, don't come to me for a conscience cleaner. It's not going to happen, right? These people, you know, they sell their soul bit by bit. That's the thing, you know. Some of them might even start out with kind of good intentions, but the further you move up the power ladder, the more of your soul you cut away from your body, right? And when you reach the level, as you said, where you're actually sending the soldiers into a war that's not their war, and they're going to get killed, and you're saying it's the best thing for them, then yeah, your soul leaves your body at that point, and it has to.
Well, that's what's so amazing about what Tammy Duckworth said is she's a veteran. She's a double amputee,
isn't she?
Yeah, she's a double amputee.
Okay, double.
I didn't know that. Okay.
She's advocating for keeping our soldiers in a war zone. She literally said something to the effect of, you know, we want them to come home, but we don't want them to come home in body bags.
So we're gonna keep them on the battlefield for as long as humanly possible.
What? That doesn't like, and you could tell that she knew what she was saying was absolute garbage. But it's really gross to be a veteran and to be a double amputee, somebody who has suffered greatly from these completely illegal and corrupt wars, and to be advocating for keeping other people in that situation is truly despicable. Like, it's a really gross thing to do. So that was one of the most disturbing things I've seen in a while. And, you know, I'm really glad Jimmy Dore did a segment on it because, you know, he made it funny, and otherwise it would have been just unbelievably depressing.
That's dark.
Yeah, that is pretty gross.
I know you have stuff to do today too. We've got a little bit of news that we're going to cover. So thank you so much for spending time with us today. We love it when that happens. And certain, like, I've got to get you back on Slow News Day here soon too. Because
preferably before the war starts again, if it's going to start again.
I'll talk to you about that later.
Yeah. Okay.
But please do let people know all the places they can find your work and how they can support you. And just, thanks again so much for being a part of the
Thank you for having me on. It was actually, I to be honest, it's like real therapy coming on here because I can swear, I can laugh. But people can find me at my Patreon. I publish at Whitney's Unlimited Hangout, of course, at UK Column that are doing an amazing job in the UK covering, not globally, but based in the UK, covering particularly the COVID-19 shit. So please follow them. They have a news program 3 days a week. At RT, of course, the dreadful Russia Today. Sputnik, and a number of others, but Patreon and Unlimited Hangout. There's going to be a new one coming out soon about, in fact, I expect to get kicked off Twitter fairly rapidly after that because I'm exposing Jack Dorsey's role in promoting the whole COVID-19 narrative alongside Sean Penn and Vivi Nevo, the Israeli billionaire that's kind of funding all their shit. So the Sean Penn one's up at Unlimited Hangout and the Dorsey Vivi Nevo one's coming shortly.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I really
All right, guys. Thanks ever so much. Have fun. Bye.
We'll talk soon.
Bye.
So, and also a special shout out to Mohamed Elmaazi. He was able to join us for a little bit inside of his crazy schedule. So I really appreciate that. You can find him on Twitter at @melmazi. I believe it's in the description down below us as well. But yeah. Thank you very much for joining us or having Vanessa with us. But we do have a couple, maybe we should start with the award stuff first, just so we can have a little bit of a lighter transition, because that was fun. So
I'm going to have to dig for that.
I'll pull it up. I can screen share it. I mean, I'm just making sure there's no like crazy ads that pop up on Telus or anything. Yeah, crazy ads. Hold on.
Stupid ads.
Right.
I love that YouTube's like, hey, here's a 15-minute ad.
Right.
That's not an ad, you guys.
No, dude, it's the better part of a television episode.
What is this doing?
Right?
Hold on. My computer's like freaking out.
Oh, look at that, an ad.
Ads everywhere.
Do you need me to try to pull it up, or are you good?
I think I'm almost there.
Okay.
I apologize.
No, it is what it is.
I think we got this, so.
We're doing it live.
Video. Hold on.
You need an ad blocker, bro.
I do.
Word. That's like the most basic of things, Andrew.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
I've got one on my whole network, so like anytime like a domain for an ad, like it blocks it completely on my network. So.
Boom. Well, I think we got it now. So, do you guys want to pick this up?
I really don't want to have to try to pronounce the majority of these names.
Yeah, that's why I'm not trying to read this one.
Germany's NGO, the Anstifter, Wednesday granted the Stuttgart Peace Prize 2020 to WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, who remains detained in the Belmarsh prison in London. The Stuttgart Peace Prize is awarded annually to people or projects who are particularly committed to peace, justice, and solidarity. In 2019, this prize was awarded to German nonprofit organization Sea-Watch, which rescues migrants, while in 2014, U.S. whistleblower Ed Snowden won the award. The award for Assange is a sign that the right to unconditional freedom of information in the press is not only protected, but enforced, said the Anstifter chairwoman, Annette Oma Reinecke. Got a tweet from Mrs. Assange. History is the story of the people's fight against the abuse of power. Every generation must take up the fight to defend freedom. An independent, fierce, free press holding power accountable to the people is critical to the fight for freedom. I agree 100% with that. The award is expected to be granted to the Australian journalist in December. A total of 26 people and institutions were nominated to receive the recognition. Assange got 310 votes in his favor, followed by Reporters Without Borders and the Zigzag Sewing Studio. The Australian-born journalist has been in Belmarsh High Security Prison in the United Kingdom, awaiting extradition to the United States on espionage charges, which could sentence him to a 175-year prison term. 10 years ago, WikiLeaks released the largest leak of classified documents in the history of journalism. Over 700,000 files and diplomatic cables exposed the atrocities committed by U.S. troops during their military operations in Afghanistan and Iraq.
And that's that. So that award, I believe, was handed out. Let me turn off the screen share real quick.
Tomorrow.
It's tomorrow. Yeah.
I think we're supposed to be streaming that, by the way.
We are.
Yeah, it's if you guys want to check it out, it is streaming online. If they're Sleepy's going to be streaming it, that's great. You guys can check it out here. But you should definitely check that out for sure.
I'm actually going to be working with Deepa as well to help her do the Free the Truth event, which I think may be similarly related. If I'm correct.
I'm angry at Deepa for scheduling that exactly when my show is. Because I'd like to watch. I'd like to watch it. I'd like to participate in it, and no, I'll be neck deep in a conversation with Danny Sherson. Pasta Jardula in the chat.
Pasta
with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Pasta. Love you guys. Action for mother effing Assange. Thank you for all your hard work. It's important. I'm proud to call all of you my friends. Aw, we love you back, Pasta. We do.
Very much. Pasta's been a beast on Twitter lately, going off.
Pasta? Look, Michael Tracy debate Pasta.
Yes, please. I will pay to see that. I'm not even kidding you. I'll pay to see it.
I will personally buy you a box of Depends, Michael Tracy. It'll so that when you shit yourself during this, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
Debate Pasta, you coward.
Oh boy.
So I did want to run through a short list here of the other awards that Julian's won personally. In 2008, he won the Economist's New Media Award. In 2019, he won Amnesty International UK's Media Awards. In 2010, he won Times Person of the Year's Reader's Choice. 2010, he won the Sam Adams Award. And he also won the Lamonti Reader's Choice for Person of the Year, as well as the Free Dacia Award. I hope I pronounced that right. In 2011, also won Sydney's Peace Foundation Gold Medal. He won the Maritha Gellhorn Prize for Journalism, the Voltaire Award for Free Speech. In 2012, he won the Big Brother Award for the Italian Hero of Privacy. 2013, he won the award for the Global Exchange on Human Rights, People's Choice. He won the Yoko Ono Lamon Courage Award for the arts.
Lennon.
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
As in John Lennon's wife.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
2013, he also won the New York Festival's World Best TV and Film Silver Medal Award. Silver World Medal. The Union of Journalists in Kazakhstan gave him the top prize. The GUE and NGL prize. He won the Gavin McFadden Award in 2019. He also won the Catalonian Dignity Prize. And then this will be the next addition to that with the Stuttgart Peace Prize, if I pronounce that properly.
Stuttgart.
Yeah.
Stuttgart.
Yeah. You got to get your German in there, buddy.
Munich. Where's Munich at?
See, you gotta say it like you pee standing up.
That's
You do.
Yeah, definitely.
So I just would like to remind everyone that the U.S. prosecution argued that the person that won all of those journalism awards somehow isn't a journalist, and then was forced to walk that all the way back to having absolutely no position to defend in court.
Other than the fact that they think they have the jurisdiction to just snatch anybody up off the street that they don't like, basically. If you
And
publish
since my chat is talking about this right now, so the Convo Couch went on Fault Lines yesterday,
That was
and
awesome.
I highly recommend that you not only listen to their segment, but listen to the phone calls from the viewers that took place immediately afterwards. And I'm very pleased to know that middle of the week, Pasta and Fee will be back on Fault Lines. More or less because their audience bullied them into giving Pasta and Fee more time to present the information that they have diligently and thoroughly collected on election fraud over the last several years. They were not treated as well as they could have been treated, and that's all I will say about that, other than it was the first time that I have listened to Fault Lines since Garland Nixon left, and I don't feel like I've been missing anything.
And nobody, I don't think there's anybody that's been doing more on election integrity than Pasta and Fee right now. They are kicking serious ass on election integrity and taking a lot of shit for it. And that's really unfortunate, but they're, you know, not letting it get in their way. They're, you know, still going after the truth, which kudos to them. Everybody support independent media, especially good independent media like Convo Couch. Please and thank you. That was your PSA for the day.
Do we want to run through the tweets that you have?
Yeah, we can. Let's see here. Okay, so we have some. Let's see. Whoops. Trying to figure out how the hell to do this here. Oh, come on. My computer's being dumb. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Is it up? Can you guys see it? Are we good?
Yep.
Okay, so these are just, I went through Twitter and tried to find some bigger names or some maybe newer supporters who have, you know, come out recently. Some of them are, you know, expecteds, but they were still good tweets, so I decided to put them in here anyways. This is, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but Chen Wei, who? I don't know. But he is a, he's the China Daily EU bureau chief, and he's the former DC and New York chief correspondent. And this was in response to Mike Pompeo, who started talking some shit about China. And so this was his response to that. Your persecution of Julian Assange is truly outrageous. Release him now. Then we have, this is Isaiah Washington. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he's an actor. Apparently he was on Grey's Anatomy, which is not a show that I watch, but it was huge. So this is pretty cool. At Real Donald Trump, please pardon at Snowden and Julian Assange. Of course, we have Oliver Stone. I included this just because it was a good, like, little 3-piece tweet where he's kind of appealing to Trump's petty, which I enjoy. Why Real Donald Trump should pardon Snowden and Assange. Number one, it will take the edge off his pardon for his family and loyalists by being unselfish and not self-serving, and at the least confound his many critics as well as future historians. Two, it will drive his enemies and the deep state and media absolutely nuts. A reproof to Barack Obama's DOJ, a shock to Joe Biden, and a well-deserved finger to one of the worst of the bad losers, Hillary Clinton, who essentially started this 4 years of destructive disinformation. And a pardon of Snowden and Assange would be a great shock to this world and reflect well on Donald Trump. Despite all the negatives he's created, it will be seen as a purely merciful action. It will not be forgotten. He's absolutely right. This would do wonders for Trump's legacy, without question. Snowden, of course, came out. I included this because anytime Ed Snowden speaks, people listen on this subject. So this is always a good time. Mr. President, and this is also incredibly altruistic and selfless of him, because he himself is seeking a pardon. So he said, Mr. President, if you grant only one act of clemency during your time in office, please free Julian Assange. You alone can save his life. It's a very true statement because Joe Biden is not going to be our friend. One of my favorites, Tara Reid, Miss Tara Reid, badass, came out Pardon Snowden, pardon Assange, and reform Espionage Act. Call your representative and support Tulsi Gabbard's proposed bills and reform to the Espionage Act. Snowden and Julian Assange deserve their freedom. Reforming the Espionage Act is vital so that whistleblowers are protected. I love her so much for this. I already liked her, now I love her. Rob Schneider, who is admittedly a little out there, but we'll take support wherever we can get it. And so he retweeted Sarah Abdallah, who I adore. If you're not following her on Twitter, you should be. And he just said, please retweet pardon Snowden, pardon Assange. And then another badass woman who I love very much, Rose McGowan, tweeted out the beautiful picture of the difference between Republicans and Democrats, of which there is not one, and said, free Assange, you know, they lied. And yes, she's right. Stella Morris retweeted the former president of Colombia, who came out in support of dropping the charges, which, okay, we'll take that too. Peter Hitchens, who is a journalist. Once again, I urge my fellow journalists, regardless of your political views, without fear or favor, to speak out against the extradition to the USA of Julian Assange, a threat to the freedom of all journalists. Your words will matter, so will your silence if you choose that. He's absolutely right. The silence of other journalists is mind-boggling and despicable.
And while we're real quick, as long as this Peter Hitchens tweet is up, there's a push on Twitter to get George Moonbat.
Yes.
Monbiot, however you pronounce that. George Moonbat, to debate Peter Hitchens about the OPCW leaks. So
yes, which is another debate that could happen.
If you have time, or you have Twitter, or you feel up to it, go give George Moonbat some shit and tell him to debate Peter Hitchens about the OPCW leaks.
Yes, please. Another one I'll pay to see. Okay, next is Julian Burnside, who is a barrister and an author activist. He said, our rights are at serious risk with this government. Julian Assange, Bernard Collery, Witness J, Witness K, the list goes on. Do not be indifferent to this. One day it may be your turn, and it will be. Okay, Assange Defense tweeted out the episode of Nina Turner's podcast with Tulsi Gabbard where they discussed it. I wasn't a big fan of Nina's response necessarily, but the fact that they covered it is still great. And it says, Senator Nina Turner with special guest Representative Tulsi Gabbard discusses proposed legislation that would drop the charges against Julian Assange and protect freedom of the press. So kudos to Nina for at least talking about it. Serena Tanari, she's a journalist. Obviously, it says, I'm a journalist and I am joining the Twitter storm. We are all Assange to reclaim our right to not be lied to. Assange is wanted by the State Department and locked in a UK prison for revealing the evidence of human rights violations and war crimes. Speak up. And then she puts hashtag journalists speak up for Assange. And man, do I wish that would happen on a grand scale. Jordan Schlachtel is also a journalist. Terrific News, RE General Flynn, Time to Pardon Ross Ulbricht and Julian Assange and Edward Snowden. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she was just elected to the House in Georgia. Another one who's a little out there. She's a Q supporter, but again, we'll take allies wherever we can find them. And she's going to be a member of Congress, so that's good. She says, I agree with Tulsi Gabbard, Thomas Massie, and Matt Gaetz. Real Donald Trump should issue a full pardon to Julian Assange and Edward Snowden. Each risk his life to expose the crimes of Barack Obama and the deep state against the American people. Let them be free. I guess, but actually, Julian's being prosecuted for George W. Bush's crimes against the American people.
That's as good as we're going to get from a Q supporter. It is. And it differs. It differs from the normal Q narrative in that she's saying, go ahead and issue full pardons, not, I can't wait until he's extradited because that's when Q said he's going to take the cabal down. Like, right. So there's a deviation from that narrative there that I find encouraging.
Yes, I agree with that. And again, I don't care who you are or what your other beliefs are. If you support Julian Assange and protecting free speech, then you're on my team for that issue. It's really that simple. Of course, Ajama Baraka, who has been a long time supporter. He said, I echo the call for full pardons for Edward Snowden, Julian Assange, and reparations for Chelsea Manning. I agree with that as well. Mark Dice, who is apparently a YouTuber. I don't know who he is really, but
you don't know who Dice is? Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah,
we could talk about Dice later. It's
okay. He's a conservative on YouTube, whatever. He's making a list. He's checking it twice. Hope he pardons Julian Assange and Edward Snowden tonight. Trump clause is coming to town. I tweeted out a while ago that all I want for Christmas is Julian Assange to be free. So, you know, I would be okay with this. Okay, Tulsi Gabbard, of course. Donald Trump, since you're giving pardons to people, please consider pardoning those who, at great personal sacrifice, expose the deception and criminality of those in the deep state. And she retweeted herself where she's discussing her legislation. Huge kudos to her for being one of few people willing to speak on this issue. I came across a Ro Khanna tweet the other day from a while back where he's talking about people being charged under the Espionage Act and blah, blah, blah. And he still has not co-sponsored her legislation. So he's all talk, and you guys should go at him on Twitter and call him out on that because, you know, he sucks. Chris Hayes, he's a douche canoe, and this is a shit tweet, but this is the one that I mentioned earlier that Mo came back on him on. But the fact that he even mentioned it, you know, it's something. Far better would be for DOJ to just drop the Assange case. As for the pardons, there are 5 people set to be executed in the next 50 days. And okay, fine, those 5 people, whatever, I'm cool. But
so pardon all of them, fucking 7-foot Opie? Jesus,
I mean,
what the fuck is wrong with you?
There's no limit, you guys. Trump can pardon whoever the fuck he wants, however many people he wants. It does not matter. So let's not do the, you know, this option's better than that option. Just pardon them all. Just do it all. I mean, go out with a bang. But listen, Chris Hayes actually said the word Assange on Twitter. So that's a start. If he ever says it on his show, then I'll be surprised because he will never do that.
The only thing I can think of when I hear Chris Hayes is Jimmy Dore's piece where he just spends 15 minutes talking about the way he's sitting in that Twitter profile picture.
Yeah. It's like a glamour shot pose. Right. It's so weird. So Young Americans for Liberty retweeted Ron Paul's recent article. It's a good article. It's very short if you guys want to go check it out, but they just retweeted it with a quote from it that says, Edward Snowden and Julian Assange are not criminals. They are heroes for telling us the truth about what criminals in government were doing in our name and with our money. And that's a quote from Ron Paul. Omar Navarro, who is, I think he's congressional. I think he runs against Maxine Waters. Frequently, like all the time. Pardon Snowden, retweet if you agree. I mean, it's not an Assange thing, but it's still promising. Randy Quaid, another one who's a little bit out there, but we'll take what we can get. Free Julian Assange, he is needed. Change the left's voter fraud narrative back to 2016 when WikiLeaks exposed Crooked H's security breach in emails and Donna Brazil's DebateGate. I want the same thing for Dominion Gate, more transparency. Whatever, yes, more transparency. But Donald Trump retweets him frequently, so this was very encouraging to me. This is Diane Sayre. She is a Senate candidate in New York, and I do believe that she is actually going up against Julian Assange, Chuck Schumer. So she actually took out this whole ad in the Westview News, the December issue, and I got a larger picture of it. So it says, save the life of Julian Assange. Journalist Julian Assange, who is languishing in Belmarsh prison in the UK, now faces a mortal threat from COVID-19, which is spreading rapidly through the institution. According to Assange's partner, Stella Morris, who is the mother of their 2 young children, there are now 65 confirmed COVID cases on Assange's prison house block, including several hospitalizations. Given the weakened state of Assange at this time as well as pre-existing medical issues, his life is in immediate danger. His family is urgently asking that he be released by Christmas. President Trump has pardoned several people during the course of his administration and has expressed his intent to end the forever wars, which have been based on lies which were exposed by Assange and other courageous truth tellers. Former NSA technical director William Binney, himself a whistleblower, has pointed out that Executive Order 13526, Section 1.7 classification prohibitions and limitations states A, in no case shall information be classified, continue to be maintained as classified, or fail to be declassified in order to 1, conceal violations of law, inefficiency, or administrative error, 2, prevent embarrassment to a person, organization, or agency, 3, restrain competition, or 4, prevent or delay the release of information that does not require protection in the interest of the national security. Exposing criminal actions by American officials is not a crime, and people who have the courage to do so must be protected. I would like to urge all readers of this message to join me in asking President Trump and all of our federal representatives to take immediate action to save the life of Assange. She included the phone numbers for both the White House switchboard and the congressional switchboard, and I think this is awesome. This is great that she did this. And if you guys want to grab those phone numbers, you can make some phone calls too. It's fun. It really is. Okay, so Peter Oborn, who is also a journalist, in today's British Journalism Review cover story, at Cook, Millie, and I exposed the deafening media silence over the Julian Assange hearing, despite its momentous consequences for free speech and investigative journalism. That's a conversation that needs to be had repeatedly because it's absurd. Alan,
so I don't want to curtail this parade of support, but I'm going to.
Okay.
We have 2 super chats that have come in the last like 10 minutes, and we're about at time for the show, so I would love to be able to answer those. And one is well, they're both for all of us, so we'll do it in the round. But the first question is from our good buddy Pasta. The question for A. What's your definition of a progressive? And I'll let you two fight over who gets to go first. And then we have basically a follow-up question to that afterwards. So go ahead, y'all.
Liberals don't want healthcare. That's basically what it is. There are people who are fine with imperialism, only care about domestic issues, and are sucking at the teat of the establishment, basically.
So if you look at what the original progressive era of the U.S. in like the 1910s, 1920s was built on, it was actually more of a anti-worker movement, where they believed in bringing in basic institutions into law to essentially solidify the white working class while oppressing minorities through labor regulation, because then the only people that would generally have access to labor, because it would be higher than what people would generally pay, would be based on your privilege in society and the people that you know for the access to jobs that you have. Nothing's really changed. All they're trying to do is make that more appetizing for people to accept by rolling healthcare out while still having the full neoliberal authoritarian policies that they did in the original progressive era.
Yeah, I told you on the phone yesterday, Pasta, that for years I've been calling progressives neoliberals with training wheels. And that's ultimately where I'm still going to land. There, and I've said this too, and I'll reiterate just because it's fucking funny. But the progressives are the most gullible voting bloc in America, and I say that knowing full well that there are millions of conservatives that believe that Jesus picks the president as long as that president is a Republican. We've got a voting bloc of people that has entirely separated in their minds domestic and foreign policy, and have no concept that our domestic foreign policy or our domestic policy is intrinsically intertwined with our foreign policy. And until you can explain that to people in a way that they will understand, they're going to keep holding their nose and voting for someone in the Democratic Party, because maybe if we get enough of them in there, eventually we'll get some real legislation, not never once, putting together that establishment leadership will still be the people involved in the rollout of something like Medicare for All or something like the Green New Deal. Matt Stoller described the DSA progressives as frightened authoritarian children. And I do see merit in that statement, accuracy in that statement. It's disappointing. It really is. The follow-up super chat to that, John Coyne, thank you very much. Is the squad totally full of shit in you guys' opinion?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
I'm going to deviate from that and say yes.
I have personal stories that if you join us in DC, I will tell you about happenings with them and those organizations that I won't say on air. But
there's no question.
Yeah,
yes.
They're terrible.
Absolutely, 100% full of shit.
I think they're starting out, right? 2017, 18, there was a couple people that really wanted to make a difference, like Richard Ojeda and a few others that were just like, I'm not fucking doing this. And I think the people that got in, I think the people that got in because they were willing to play ball, not because of an electorate or because of popular support, but because a successful intelligence operation was ran against the American people, specifically the left wing, in a way to not only give people a way to feel represented, but also to divide that group further because it's no longer about policies, it's about personality.
Well, that's the thing, man. With the United States, since television really has operated on an electoral system based solely on cult of personality candidates, because when you don't have policy that you can demonstrate effectively in a way that it will improve the lives of everyday citizens. In fact, when your policies go out of their way to destroy the lives of everyday citizens, you have to have a cult of personality figure, because otherwise sensible people would be like, you're all fucking scum. No.
Well, and this goes back to your saying that progressives are the most gullible. Progressives are impressed by tweets. Mm-hmm. I mean, they get like super excited about snarky tweets and clapbacks. And you guys, tweets are not legislation. That's not how that works. I mean, Josh Fox retweeted Ilhan Omar or something that she said, and he was like, leadership. And I'm like, yeah, everybody knows that tweets are super effective and, yay, leaders. I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing, what they're impressed by. And, like Ayanna Pressley yesterday tweeted out something about, tell me what another $1,200 check would do for you. And hey Ayanna, this isn't story time with the pores. Like, we need you to get the fuck off of Twitter and go do your job. Like, it's really ridiculous. And it would be really cool if people would stop being super impressed by tweets.
But she shaved her head, Misty.
Isn't
that just so inspiring?
Doesn't she have alopecia or something? The hair, I think that's what it's called, the hair loss disorder. I'm pretty sure she does. But and that's whatever it is what it is. But you guys, tweets don't pay your bills. And until I see one of them actually standing up to Nancy Pelosi, and actually trying to organize their massive base to do something, it's useless. They're useless. They really are. I mean, people give Jimmy Dore a lot of shit for saying that, but there's no point to them. Their point
is to keep people voting inside of a party that has never and will never represent them. They are, in every conceivable definition, a limited hangout.
Mm-hmm. When I say there's no point, I mean there's no point to them for us.
Yeah.
They serve no purpose for us.
Yeah. No, I agree with that 100%. Except for as a cautionary tale. They should absolutely be viewed as a cautionary tale of what happens inside the Democratic Party. Like, I don't believe for a moment that any of the squad had an altruistic bone in their body when they announced that they were running for Congress. I don't. In fact, Pasta, I'm still on the air. I can't talk to you. Why are you calling me?
Put him on speaker. We'll have,
Right.
we'll have an
All
answer.
right. Okay. Pasta, you're on speaker, Pasta. You're live on the air with us.
I know, I'm watching right now because the reason why I couldn't write down this other one. Here's my dilemma, guys. When me and Fiorella started this whole thing, we were out in the street with those progressives, right? When the whole Bernie thing, whatnot. Obviously, a lot of things have changed in the last 4 years, and we've kind of gone different ways. You know, the progressives politically, everything you're saying is so on point. But how do I still chastise some of these people when they're still out in the streets doing all the activist work, like they're feeding people and they're getting people showers and they're housing people and they're doing so much great work, but every single time I try to have a conversation with them about politics, all they can say is Medicare for all, and they are weak on all those other issues when it comes to freedom of press, freedom of speech and stuff like that. But this is the one dilemma I have, because I still feel like they amount for something because they are the activists working in the street.
So
Here's
how I would broach that, Pasta. I would point out that the work that they're doing in the streets is vital, essential, and entirely separate from the U.S. government.
Well, can I have a little more cynical opinion on that?
Yeah.
So we had Vanessa Beeley on a little bit ago where we were talking about the devastated state of Syria and how, like, people there don't even have time to worry about COVID-19 because of how damn hungry they are and they need water and food. I think what we have with AOC and those kinds of people taking into the streets, as good as it is and as important as it is, with them failing on every other actual piece of policy, I think what that is it's making the idea of what's happening in Syria and having to fight for clean water and clean food palatable to people. Because we've talked extensively earlier about how everything's just decaying to the point that the average person will having to be figuring out where they're even getting the water to flush their own shit down the toilet. And I think AOC and those people are making that easier. And they're making people okay with a reality in that way.
Did you get any of that, Pasta? Oh, he hung up. Okay. He's waiting for your answer, Misty.
Oh.
So I guess so he can hear the answers.
Okay, so I think that with a lot of people who are in the streets, it's really difficult to approach people who are already doing the work and try to convince them that the people that they admire or respect or look up to are not good people. They feel inspired by the AOC types and the Ilhan Omars and whatever. A lot of people got into activism because of Bernie Sanders and because of the squad and whatever. And that's great. Like, I'm not saying that Bernie Sanders hasn't had a positive impact in some way. I just think the negative impact is far greater. But I think the biggest thing is really just trying to, like we talked about earlier, just talking to people, having conversations. And it's going to take repeated conversations. You can't just, like we've talked about a million times on the show, you can't approach somebody and say, hey, everything you ever thought was a lie, and expect them to just take that in, digest it, and be okay with it. It takes, multiple conversations, talking to people and explaining to them why things are the way that they are. And, I don't want to ever discourage anybody from being out on the streets. We need people out on the streets. But we also need people to recognize the game being played so that we can more effectively fight against it. And doing all of the good work of feeding people or making sure people have a warm place to sleep, that's all well and good, but that does nothing to address the causes of it. So if we can separate those two things, that while it's fantastic to do this work and to treat the symptoms of the problem, to try to make things a little bit easier now, it's also important to really reflect on where these issues come from and really start the hard work of going to war on those things. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense at all?
And it does. And it actually makes me think a lot about Steve's point that he constantly brings up, which is 100% accurate, that people have replaced religion with political identity. Because back in, I don't know, like, let's say pre-1940, like pre the collapse of the modern Christian church, that church, while it was still a center for horrible things to happen, was looked at as like the charity, where like if you didn't have the food, you could go to church. No one talked about the fact that it was those same people in decision-making positions that were forcing people to not be able to eat, right? And I see AOC as sort of that same thing, where she is just a priest of the Church of the Democrats, passing out food at her gilded hall to the poor that are coming and groveling at her gates in hunger. So like that's
and that's really like kind of that's what pisses me off the most about the squad and the people who stand for them. You know, it's all well and good for AOC to Twitch and, you know, raise some money for homelessness or whatever. That's fantastic. That does nothing to fix the problem. And unless and until she is willing to actually take a stand against the people in power, she serves no purpose. She could be doing that work, you know, without being in Congress. People do that work without being in Congress all the time. And so the fact that these people ran and their supporters elected them to challenge power, that was the whole point. And they're not doing that at all. Not at all. You know, I just had somebody make a meme for me yesterday of Jan, but AOC, and instead of Marsha, it's Republicans, because she never criticizes Nancy Pelosi, the Democratic leadership, nothing, not a word. Every time something happens, it's conservatives, Republicans, conservatives. That's all she ever does is bitch about the GOP. And that's all well and good. The GOP is a bunch of heathens, like they're pieces of shit. But she's not willing to take on the power in her own party. And that makes her completely useless. Completely. There's
Sarah Wagner in the chat just fucking hit it right on the head in very few words. If AOC was a threat, she wouldn't be there.
Absolutely, Sarah. Bam. Mic fucking drop.
And that's what I mean. And this is something that we've been trying to tell people do forever, dude. She was on the cover of Vanity Fair
and Rolling Stone. And
I don't know who needs to hear this, but Vanity Fair is not the premier outlet of the revolution. Okay.
What?
If we could, I know, shocker.
What?
But
by the way,
I guess technically this is a shocker. But you know, I did
you bastard.
But Vanity Fair, she gets fucking the amount of mainstream hype that the squad in general has had lavished upon them should make even the most casual observer of American politics go, oh, well, they look like they're in.
Because they're in.
Yeah.
They are very much in. They are 100% part of the establishment. And you can come at me with but they don't take corporate donations. Okay, fine. What does that matter if they still vote in favor of corporations? If they still call Nancy Pelosi Mama Bear? If they still, go with the flow and don't challenge anything about the establishment? When's the last time they actually challenged the establishment? Seriously, I'm asking. When? When is it? When was the last time they actually challenged power? Because they don't ever.
No, you're allowed to have dissent votes as long as you vote on the right legislation. Mm-hmm. You're allowed to appear to be standing up to authority when it's fundraising time. John Coyne, thank you very much for the super chat. TYT and Bernie led me to where I am now, but I don't pay attention to either of their BS now. That's the way that growth is supposed to work. Jesus Lord, I thank you, John Coyne, for recognizing that this is a path and that you're not supposed to just
be stagnant
down in any media sphere. You should always be striving to find more, learn more, find people that go deeper into things like that. That's how this shit's supposed to work. And you are a 100% spot on example of that process, man. I have disappointment in TYT. I don't have hatred for them. What I find disappointing is that they're a cynical, disingenuous, fake progressive network that ultimately sheepdogs as hard as they possibly can for the Democratic Party. But like, just me saying that doesn't change anyone's mind. That's something they have to experience for themselves in their own right. And this whole, like, the whole reason that I have a show, Slow News Day, the whole reason that show exists is because there's a giant space in independent media for that next step. Like, if people are just coming out of a mainstream media landscape and they find TYT, or they find Tom Hartman's Padawan, or they, find fucking even Jimmy Dore to that point, like, you should be, wow, there's a whole world of information that I haven't been exposed to. And it can't be this right here, this in TYT, or this in Tom Hartman's Padawan show, or Jimmy Dore's show, isn't the totality of human knowledge. And I would like to learn more. So let me see who these guys are having on. Or more importantly, let me see what these guys aren't talking about or refuse to talk about. Now let me look up where I can find that information. And if you land on Slow News Day, welcome. We love you. Stick around. And if you land somewhere else, then you do. But the whole point is you should want to keep going.
Also, shameless plug for Misty. Check out Facts on the Ground.
Yes, go watch Facts on the Ground.
Sleepy. See, I'm so bad at myself. It's a good thing I was sleepy. See, he could be my hype man too.
Right?
I need one. I'm terrible at self-promotion, you guys. I'm really bad at it.
So before we close out, I do want to remind everyone, start making your travel and housing plans for Washington, D.C. now. We're going to be there January 3rd and 4th, and we need you with us. If you cannot join us, be the protest in your community. Demand that the rendition of Julian end. There's departments of justice everywhere all over the country. There's telephone poles that can hold signs. Do what you can with the time and money that you have. My name's Andrew Smith. You can follow me on Twitter at Andrew Sigmund. You can follow us on Twitter at action_4 Assange. If you go to action4Assange.com, you can find all of our call to actions listed on there, including circulating the bill that we talked about today, which was the Tulsi Massey legislation. So yeah, thank everybody. Thank you.
And I am Misty Winston. You can find me on Twitter at Sarcasm Stardust. I also, like Sleepy Josh just said, have a show called Facts on the Ground with my friend Jesse Zerwell. We have some cool things that we have planned coming up, so you guys should go subscribe for that. I want to thank Mo and Vanessa for being on the show. They were amazing, as always. Two of my favorite people to talk to, I think. I look forward to having Mo back so we can have a longer conversation with him because he's fascinating. Thanks to everybody in the chat. You guys are amazing. Make sure you share the GoFundMe if you can't, or if you can donate. If you can't donate, fine, share it. That's good. That's great. Awesome. And thanks to my co-hosts. And yeah, I think that's it.
My name's Steve Poikin, and I host a show called Slow News Day that you should be watching on the Rockfin, because that's where I'll be when YouTube arbitrarily removes my channel. If you are watching on YouTube, please go ahead and subscribe, hit the notification bell. There's no guarantee that you'll actually get notified when I go live, but give it a shot. I will also thank everyone who donated during the stream today: Chris Hogg, Sarah Wagner, Rob Juno, Chloe Hajmatau. Thank you, Chloe. We appreciate it.
I have a feeling I know who that is.
Huh?
I said I have a feeling I know who that is.
Yeah, thanks, Glory. We love you. Thank you to my co-hosts. Huge thanks to Mohamed Elmaazi and Vanessa Beeley. Thanks, Sleepy Josh, on the ones and twos, to everyone who's been watching today and supporting the show. I can't thank you enough. Andrew's absolutely right. If you're anywhere near DC, get there January 3rd and 4th. Be a part of this with us. Red Sea Socialist, I see in the chat that you're in DC. If you are on Discord, get at the Action for Assange Discord. And if you want, you'll be able to get in on our DC meetings that we're having mostly every week. and we'll be able to get you on board, and that would be fantastic. Tomorrow on Slow News Day, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, I will be joined by Danny Sherson. That is going to be a heavy and incredible conversation. Danny's got a book out called Patriotic Descent. I recommend everyone read it. It gives you a wonderful insider perspective on what a veteran, I guess, active duty combat soldier, the transformation from, I guess, just all out warrior into dissenting anti-war patriot. Wonderful book. Tomorrow afternoon, we're going to do another moderator chat here on Slow News Day. They've been incredibly fun. In case you can't tell from my chat, I got a bunch of I have so freaking many moderators because the first night we were in DC, I got a little bit high and I started passing out moderator wrenches like Oprah and car keys.
I still need that meme or GIF or whatever, y'all. Somebody help me.
Misty really wants a GIF of my head superimposed on Oprah Winfrey's body, saying, "You get a wrench, you get a wrench." Everybody.
I need it. I need it in my life.
So if you can make that happen, make that happen. And then also, we're going to, I think, be the first channel to do a thorough expose of the fact that Whitney Webb got robbed on her Rockfin. About $10,000 of cryptocurrency was stolen from her, and in the words of Alex Jones, we have the documents. We do. I have the entirety of the conversation between Whitney and Rockfin, between Rockfin and Whitney's former employer at Mempress News, where the person who stole this money still works. I've got all the screenshots of their conversation, and I've got the actual blockchain ledger. So we're going to do that. We're going to expose a thief. We're going to have a hell of a moderator chat. And that's going to take place on Rockfin and on Rockfin only. So make sure that you are there for that. If you haven't got your free Rockfin account, please go ahead and do that. All of my content on Rockfin is free for at least 24 or 48 hours. Most of the time I forget. And don't set it back to premium until like the next time I do a show. You had your hand up, Andrew.
Rockfin introduced super chats.
Tipping. Yeah.
Well, when you go to tip, I practiced. When you go to tip, it actually lets you put in the text for I think no matter what 400 characters. I could be wrong, but I sent like $5 to you actually to see how it worked, and I got 400 characters. So it's way longer than what YouTube gives you for any amount of money, and it probably actually benefits the creators instead of taking like 40% off the top.
Yep. So and Rockfin fixed their fucking chat finally. There's no auto loading text, predictive text. No, it's fixed. It's handled. Thank you, Rockfin. Thank you for listening to us and finally implementing that. And I think that's gonna do it, man. One more time. I love all you guys to death. Thank you for being a part of this with us. We adore you.
I'll do the glory.
Yeah, right. So I hope to see most of you guys tomorrow. We hope to see you on Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific for the vigil. I am terrible at this, man. Terrible at this. Big thanks to Charlie Robinson for giving me a new t-shirt idea, which is going to be a Slow News Day shirt that says "Getting Weird and Talking Government Fuckery." And until then, guys, good luck to us all.